Good morning, Adelaide. My name is Con and I am the Conversationalist. And if you haven't worked it out by now, my drink of choice is indeed my latte. My guest this morning is Mark Sandercock. Mark is an experienced NLP hypnotherapist, psychotherapist, relationship coach, sports mindset coach, NLP coach, and practitioner. Mark experienced a marriage breakdown and was addicted to crystal meth and marijuana for over 10 years before meeting his current wife, Monica, of 17 years. For the last 6 years, he and Monica have been running their business Magnificent Mindset, which assists couples to reignite that spark, passion, and intimacy, and singles in finding their ideal partner. Mark and his business have featured in numerous publications and podcasts, so a lot of experience there and credibility. Good morning, Mark. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Con. I'm very well, thank you, mate. And mate, my drink of choice this morning, I've already had my morning coffee, but I've got the lemon and ginger tea going, and it's absolutely great to be sitting here and virtually on Zoom, having a morning cuppa with you, mate. So
Good on you, mate.
Well, thank you.
I really appreciate the time. I know you've got your story is fascinating, and indeed I know that the viewers will get plenty out of this. But I want to get straight into it, and we'll get into the bad stuff. Mate, tell me about your drug use, and I know you mentioned before we started recording that you were a regular marijuana user, which then progressed onto the nasty stuff. Tell me the circumstances surrounding, I guess, the beginning of your drug use, please.
Yeah, for sure, mate, for sure. Look, mine probably started out as many young teenagers. 15, 16, started experimenting with marijuana. And yeah, it'd been an occasional thing with friends, and it just went from there. Look, I've come from a good home, went to a great school, and all of that. Loving parents. Got 2 older brothers, and as a teenager, I just started experimenting with friends. Yeah, we'll smoking marijuana on the weekend, and then as progressively got older, then it was more regular use. And so it went from maybe the weekends to maybe every second or third day. And it just kind of progressed from there. And I suppose, I remember my parents were saying, when they found out I did experiment with marijuana, they're saying, they were worried about it going on to heavier drugs. And I'm like, no, that's not true. You can stay just with this. And that was just a story that I was telling myself. So from there, over the years, as I grew up and got into my 20s, then into my 30s, I experienced a marriage breakdown in my late 20s. And I was still smoking marijuana, probably more regularly than what I would have liked at that time. Not that I didn't even have that awareness. And then after the marriage breakdown, I was sort of lost within myself, and I had to try and find who I was. I had 2 young kids, and I was living back in my parents' house for a period of time. I had a roof. I needed a roof. And eventually I started, taking what was called like speed, because back in those years, it makes me sound really old saying that, it was called speed. And so I'd have that on the weekend, and it was great, blah, blah, blah. And then as it progressed, I found I was, wanting that more and more. And it was just, suddenly it came not just the weekend or every second weekend, it was like maybe every third day. It just started to creep up. Next minute it was more and more. And I know many people would have experienced this. And I just didn't know any other way. It's all I knew at that time. It was a bit of an escapism, numbing down myself, my own feelings. And it wasn't until many years later, so we're talking 10 plus years here, And I knew it got to the stage where I'd had enough, and I had no idea where to go and what to do. All I knew was I had this inner turmoil where I'd go for my morning walk, and I'd be saying to myself on my walk, "I'm not having any gear today. I'm not having any gear today." And I was in corporate. I was working in corporate at that time, so I was looking after two states as a state coordinator, and so I had a responsible job. And yet I was still able to, function, because many people still function and do things addicted to drugs and alcohol or whatever their choice of addiction is. And on my morning walks, I'm thinking, I've had enough. I don't want to do it. I don't want to have any gear today. Sure enough, come 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there I am having some gear, giving in. And then it was just a roller coaster of these emotions of like not wanting it, having it. And eventually I had enough, and I made a decision. I actually went to a Tony Robbins event, and I was like, I'm going there for this. And whilst I was there, I rang my wife, Monica, my current wife, and I said, "Love, I want you to go out to the shed. I want you to grab that, all my utensils for my addiction." And I said, "Chuck them out. Just get rid of them." And she was like, "What?" And she thought it was just marijuana. She had no idea that I was using meth.
Wow.
And I came home, and I had to be very, very vulnerable, and it was scary as hell.
I bet it was.
I had to say to her, "Love, I'm addicted to meth." She had no idea.
Goodness gracious me. So Mark, I actually wasn't aware that you're actually on meth when you were married to Monica. So this, I would suggest, would be a theme in society where people are involved in heavy drug addiction and drug use in their marriage and keeping it secret from their partners.
Mate, you are absolutely spot on. You'll be surprised how common this is. My story, yes, it's my story, but it is so many others as well that is just kept away. It was like a little secret. It was my little secret. And yet this secret plays out in so many other people's lives. And whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's porn, whether it's gambling, it could be anything. It is so common. And me sharing this, it's not about go you, well done.
I understand that.
This is about awareness, to know that there is a way out. And when you share this with your partner or your loved ones, the people around you, and if they can come with an open heart for when you do open up about what you're experiencing, and with an open heart of saying, "Wow, that must have been difficult for you," rather than, "Why are you doing that? Judgment. How much have you spent?" Judgment. Because the person who has the addiction is going through enough of that. They're judging themselves. Probably, it's
we're our own. There's no doubt we're our own worst enemies. And when you are going through, and I've had my share of challenges, and it doesn't make you feel any better. It doesn't help your self-esteem when you've got another party or parties that are beating you up over it when you've, I guess, basically bared your soul.
Yeah.
Mate, I just want to touch on this just for a little longer. What was Monica's reaction? Like, how was it affecting your relationship? Or were you aware it was affecting your relationship? Or did Monica was there a bit of a light bulb moment where she said, once you'd come clean with the meth, that she had gone, that explains A or B or C?
Yeah, she actually had no idea about the meth. She knew that I was smoking marijuana,
Mm.
and she hated it. And how it affected our relationship was it was creating a disconnect. So I would actually go out of my way to get out of the house or go to a friend's house just so I could partake
Mm.
in, getting my hit, my fix.
Mm.
So, and part of me was shutting down because, when you're not being honest to yourself, there's no way I was being fully open and honest in my relationship.
Of course.
So it affected our relationship in many ways, and even with my children, because again, if I'm not being open and honest with myself, how can I be open and honest with them and be that role model? So it affected all of my relationships around me. And how she handled it was, she was blown out of the water. She was just like, wow. And she hugged me. And I know this might sound really weird.
Mm.
She stood there in the kitchen, and I still remember how this went. In the kitchen, she hugged me. And she said, thank you for sharing that. And we cried. And I was just like, I had this massive relief of like, far out, thank you.
Mm.
Thank you for being here for me, not judging me. And yes, she spoke to her coach because she needed a bit of a guy to say, wow, my husband's just come out with this. And her coach said to her, don't make it about you. Don't make it about you. Think of that person and what they're experiencing, and be open and just be there for them. And she did that. And I'm so grateful and thankful for that, because it could have gone totally the other way.
Yeah, it could have gone the other way. Yeah, without question.
Could have been, I'm out of here. You've spent how much money?
Yeah,
You're lying to me. You've never been truthful. It could have gone that way. It didn't. And here we are coming up to a 17th year wedding anniversary and rocking it and learning. We're always learning and falling over, getting back up.
Mate, tell me, how long ago was it that you had that conversation with Monica about
that was 10 years ago.
Okay.
10 years ago.
So that was obviously the beginning of your journey to, I guess, find yourself and lead you on to where you are today.
Most definitely. I've always had an interest in personal development from from even when I was like, my early 20s, I've had an interest in it. However, it's not until you open up to yourself and dig within yourself, which is what I did 10 years ago, that the true personal development kicks in. Because you can go learn, you can go read, you can go to seminars and do all of that. But until you take action, that's where the actual development kicks right in. So yeah, my journey definitely started 10 years ago, where I had to go inside myself, go to my inner world, that scary inner world where most people, and I get it, are scared to go, because you mentioned at the beginning there, your soul being, can't remember your exact word, your soul being ripped open, exposed. I explain it like as if my chest had been ripped open, and I was raw, just raw, and very at that stage very vulnerable, and that's what it felt like. And it's so pleasing though to be able to do that.
Yeah, as I said, it's the element of relief, I would imagine, from something like that, mate. Look, there's certainly a couple of things that I've learnt through my journey, and one of them, we don't take action until we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. How many people say, oh, I'm just so sick and tired of this, but they don't actually do anything until they actually get to the point where they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And certainly, with the seminars, we've all been to our share of them from a personal development perspective. And invariably, one of the common lines that is used by all the presenters is that the seminar doesn't start till Monday, which means I've taught you everything. I've given you the skills, I've given you the knowledge, but unless you actually implement it, and take action,
Yeah.
you've really wasted your time and your money. So just tell me a little bit about your sick and tired of being sick and tired, and the impact that Tony Robbins event, other than the obvious, getting you to open up with regards to your drug addiction with Monica. How else did that impact you, and I guess lead you on to starting Magnificent Mindset?
Yeah, most definitely. And I love what you mentioned there about the actual thing doesn't start till the Monday. That is so true. How did it gave me an insight into knowing that anything is possible. Because for me, overcoming drugs at that time, I always thought was impossible because I didn't know how I was going to do it, who I would be, who I would actually become. Because I didn't know that part of me, because I only knew the other guy. And I use the other guy now because it seems like so far away now. So I only knew that guy. So digging deep within myself and going to an event and making a serious decision to change, and then said, well, everything's possible. And with what I can do. So then I chose to take up some study. I was like, wow, I'm going to go study. And I was hopeless at school. I got A's in PE and religion. That's what I got my A grades in. Right? So that's it. So for me, studying was very daunting, reading a book. And now I'm the total opposite. I absolutely love it. I love reading, I love audiobooks. I love just being immersed. So Magnificent Mindset started by the birth of, let's go take a risk. Let's go do something. And it was actually Monica that started the business. And she saw I got out of corporate and I went and started my own business in something totally different, just had a total change, a life change. And I said, Monica, no, go start some sort of life coaching. You love it and you're good at it. So she started studying and she started Magnificent Mindset. I had my business going, but whilst I had my business, I'm studying all her stuff. And I'm like, oh no, this is where I'm going. I'm going towards this. And sold my business after a couple of years, which was my intention. And we joined forces. And so that's how Magnificent Mindset was born.
Oh, okay.
And then I thought, there's still more. I went and became a hypnotherapist, a psychotherapist, studied NLP, sports mindset coaching, relationship coaching. And because of my passion, or my own experience of a marriage breakdown, I've got a big passion for assisting men in regards to relationship breakdown, even if they're in a relationship, keeping that together, how to create that beautiful relationship you can have. I never wanted to be, and you would have heard this, Con, many people have, when someone's come out of a relationship, and I'm going to refer this to blokes, where they then get this little bit of a chip on the shoulder against women, or they're not going to go into a relationship again because they've been burnt or hurt. And I never wanted to experience that again. And I wanted to be able to show other men that, hey, there is still love out there. There's still life out there. And you're worth it. People are worth it to go and experience that. And so I have a big passion for that, assisting blokes in relationships.
Mate, look, how often you hear people who are coming out of, bad marriages or coming out of our marriage, and they go, I'm never going to get married again. I'm never going to do this. And they're setting themselves up. They're creating this story that there's nothing better.
Yeah.
That's as good as it got. It was rubbish, and I'm never ever going anywhere near that, which I guess ultimately then leads them to make poor choices in terms, whether it be lifestyle and so on and so forth. Mate, what I do want to touch on it, and we will move on from the drug addiction, because I've got some questions here which I'm asking for a friend. Mate, I've used this platform for some free consults in case you haven't worked it out.
Why
Mate,
not?
I guess one of the other things that we learn through our personal development journey is that we're the sum of the 5 people we hang out with the most. Now, obviously, with your drug addiction, you said you'd go off to friends and do these sorts of things. Are you still in contact with some of those friends, or was it once you made that decision and you called Monica and said, right, throw this stuff out, and you came clean, that those friends or associates or whatever you choose to call them, that they also went by the wayside? Did you have a conversation with them? Was it cold turkey? How did that play out? I'm really interested.
Yeah, sure. The ones that were, I call them my drug friends, the people I got it off, or the people I would hang out with for just drugs, they were cut off. It wasn't healthy for me to even be in contact or catch up with them. I cut them off. And the ones that were the social recreational ones, like these could be my old school friends, and we've got a lot of history. I limited my time with them. And I found that if I was with them, they were partaking, I had such an empowerment within myself that I was just like, wow. I just had nothing even wanted me to go there near it. So I did have created distance between myself in regards to those people. And the beauty of it is, when I let go of the people that were, taking drugs and in that circle, I've opened up so much more space for the ones I do want in my life.
Yeah.
And like you said, we're the average of the 5 people we hang with. I want to hang with people that I want to aspire to be. I want to hang with people that get me, and can, because a lot of people, especially when you have for many years, your friends can actually struggle with who you become. So they have their own internal battle of, who is this guy now? They want the old person back. They want the other guy back. However, he's gone. I'm still the same guy, but that other guy, as in the core of me, is still there.
Yeah.
The other character's gone. So yeah, I create distance, and I definitely create a new circle of friendships. And look, it was lonely for a while. Full on. It was lonely for a while because I used to just hang with people that took drugs.
I guess you don't know any different, really, do you? You only know what you only know.
Correct. So I had to sit in that space and be cool with that, of being, well, I don't want to go over there. Don't want to catch up with him or her. So that's all right. I've made the choice, and I was happy with my decision.
So this is a really, really simplistic, and never having been a drug, or alcohol addiction been involved, and this is only from my take. How simplistic is it to say, well, if you're, first of all, I guess you need to develop that self-awareness. You develop this awareness that you just didn't want to do this anymore. But then to actually understand that you need to go and find a different group. And is it that simplistic to say to a drug user, mate, don't go to, John, Harry, or Paul's place, go and find other people? It sounds really, really easy, but I know it's not that easy. So what would you say to anybody that is watching that has got to the point where you were, where that awareness has kicked in, and they're looking for, I don't know, an inspiration, a spark, something to help them move on to that next step? What's that one key message that you could give them?
Yeah, and so true, mate. It sounds very simple, and yet it's not, because that is probably one of the hardest things when you just not go see someone or your normal crowd. My one key message or takeaway and it's what I'm doing, it's what I assist people with, and many others have experienced this, is you've got to be your own best friend first, which means you have to like every aspect of yourself, your good, the bad, all your flaws, everything about you, loving and experiencing yourself first. Because no matter where you go, whether you go sit with whoever or go see whoever it is, you really need to sit with yourself in that space before anything. And once you can do that, then you can open up and actually you can go and experience other people. It's a difficult thing. A lot of people, that's probably the hardest thing about this journey, is looking inwards about, wow. And it's all identity as well, because attached to all of this is our identities. It's our ego. There's so much else that's going in this, because you may be seen as that guy that mucks around as a clown as well as a laugh. And yet there's so much more to me, you, or whoever the individual is. There is so much more. So my key one point is become your own best friend. Learn to sit in your own puddle for a little while and really embrace all of your uglies, all of your great stuff. The more you can do that and be a best friend to you, then you can go and experience other people.
Yeah, good point. Mate, I want to talk about hypnotherapy for a moment.
Yeah.
There's a stereotype of what hypnotherapy is. And if you look at the old movies and things like that, the patient's on the couch or in a chair and the hypnotherapist has got his little watch going backwards and forwards, keep your eye on the clock, keep your eye on the clock, and then they're getting them to make, pig noises and God knows whatever else if it's in, Vegas. Mate, break down some of the, I guess, misunderstandings or stories that surround hypnotherapy, and I guess its level of success. Is that level of success dependent on the participant's willingness to adapt to success, or is it something that as a hypnotherapist you have the power, let's say, to implement, or control's a bad word, but really guide that person? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so look, that is a classic of what you mentioned there. The old fob watch, waving in front of the person. Watch the watch, watch the watch. But there is the stage hypnosis, and yes, that is a thing. Stage hypnosis, it's fun. It's a comedy act. It's there for a show. That's what it's there for. I don't do that. Mine is more about actually creating change. Hypnotherapy, what is it? It's a natural state that we experience. We all experience some form of hypnosis during a day, because what it is, it's, there's part-time in the morning when you're just waking up and you're sort of not fully awake and you're not really asleep. You're just in that limbo. That's basically where the mind is, in that state of I'm just going blank. It's a state of trance. Whereas so hypnotherapy is you're not asleep. You're fully aware of everything that's going on around you. It's just that we're talking and working with the subconscious directly. We're overtaking and jumping over the conscious mind, the crocodile mind that's actually keeping you safe, and that's its job, to keep you safe. But it also stops you from creating change, because it's holding all the fear back. Whereas when we're working with the subconscious, we can go direct, and that's where everything is stored. And in regards to what you mentioned about people willing to want the change, 100%. People have got to want it. In fact, if clients come to me and they say, they're about 50-50, I'll say, look, nah, you need to be 100% that you want this, because it's like anything. You can't go to the gym wanting to get a great body or lose weight or whatever you want to do if you're only half committed.
Mm.
You don't go to the gym and buy your membership and get a personal trainer, rock up a couple of times, or maybe rock up and don't do any work. You've got to want it. So it's exactly the same. You've got to want the change. And I assist with hypnotherapy to take you there. Hypnotherapy is a beautiful, just light state of trance.
Okay. All right. And in terms of, you know, I'll liken it to a more physical aspect, you know, whether it's, you know, chiropractic physiotherapy or anything of that nature, where if you have we'll call it a particular ailment where you need to go multiple occasions, you know, whether it's multiple adjustments and whatever. And is hypnotherapy the same? Is it a process, or is it, you know, you do one session and generally you find a level of success? Obviously, as we said, depending on the willingness of the participant.
Yeah.
Is it something that is a process, or is it one and done?
Generally, it is a process. So depending on what the person's coming for, there will be a process that will go through for that. There are some things, say for instance, like for smoking, maybe a one-off session, maybe done in one session. I do offer a second session as well as that package,
Sure.
but generally that's a one session.
Okay.
Maybe it's a phobia. Someone may have a phobia of a spider or something like that. That could be one session. That could be done in 15, 20 minutes. For other things though, it can be a process because there's generally emotions that are attached to whatever they've experienced or are experiencing. So it'll be a series of things. A series of sessions.
Okay. So depending on what the issue is. Yeah,
Correct.
And mate, I want to wind up with, you know, a lot of the work that you do with couples, you know, helping them with their, you know, intimacy and relationships. What are maybe one or two of the most common issues that you see that are, I guess, let's say, the root cause of that lack of intimacy or lack of connection within the couples?
Yeah, sure. Now this is our bread and butter. This is where we thrive in. Issues would be lack of communication, and I'm meaning to be able to have deep, honest conversations where both can sit and actually have those conversations, the tough conversations, without taking it personally, without it flaring up into a 2 weeks of silence or into a yelling match. Most couples actually struggle to have open, tough conversations where they don't take it personally and can listen to each other. And that is just so common. And if I was to break that down even more, for men to be able to actually be that man in the relationship, to really step up into who he is and who he needs to be for his woman, and for a woman to allow her man to be her man. So it definitely, the main one there is just the communication, the tough conversations. And maybe it's not about a big issue. Maybe it's just a small thing. However, it's about to bring that up. A lot of people don't actually have the conversation how to bring up something because they fear of how will he or she react?
Yep.
How will I handle that? What will happen from that? So a lot of people don't actually have conversations. They just keep it in. And the result is they further apart, and it becomes just mundane, looking after the household. Yeah, we've got a business or we're going to work. When you can have those conversations, whether it be that small thing or that big thing, and sit there with each other and go, oh, cool, thank you for sharing that with me. Yeah, how can we improve that? Let's work on that. There's the gold right there.
I had the great pleasure of going to see Jack Canfield, and I'm sure you're aware of Jack Chicken Soup for the Soul, Jack, in Phoenix, Arizona, many years ago at his signature Breakthrough to Success event. And one of the questions that he asks, or one of the relationship, I guess, tips that he gave was the ability to sit with your partner and say, you know, how would you rate our relationship on a scale of 1 to 10? And if he didn't get a 10 and he got, say, an 8, he would say, okay, what can I do, or how can we make it a 10? And there was no, I guess the key here is that you've alluded to is the fear of judgment or the reaction to that other person, or the willingness for them indeed to be open and go, well, you know what, Mark, you know, it's really an 8 at the moment. And that's because, I don't know, you know, you were pretty selfish the other night by, you know, going to bed and leave me to clean up, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And there's no willingness to have that conversation, but I think the harder part is for how is the other person going to react?
Yeah, mate, I love it, and that's it, a nail on the head. Because what happens, people get defensive, they become reactive. It doesn't become an open conversation at all. It gets shut down and never brought up. Imagine if more couples did that. We sat down and said, oh, we're actually at a bit of a 6 at the moment. How can we pump that back up again? What's been happening in our life that we're going to bring that back up? So it's such a, I love that that's exactly what it's about. And well said, mate. Exactly, well said.
Yeah, and look, it's interesting. I'm blessed to be in a relationship at the moment where I can have those we can have those conversations.
Yeah.
And I've never actually been in a relationship where I didn't fear judgment to talk about whatever it was, whether it was money, you know, intimacy, you know, or whatever. And for the first time in my life, I'm actually in that space. But you don't just get there, because you got to let your guard down just a little bit at a time, and before you can actually get there. And it's interesting listening to other couples who are in relationships because they don't know any different. They don't know any better. So, mate, just talk us through what would your advice be to somebody, you know, whether it be a husband or wife, or man or a woman, or male, it doesn't really matter. What would your advice be if they were in a situation where they're just going through the motions? It's get up, have breakfast, feed the dog, go to work, come home, do the dishes, and go to bed.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your experience there, Con, as well, mate. And it's awesome to hear that you're in a relationship where you can share and have conversations. Most people, and if you ask them, do you want your relationship to be this way? Are you happy with it? Are you and not saying, most people say, yeah, it's okay. They're just going to roll with it. It's just what it is. Yeah, that's how he is or how she is.
Yeah.
People can stick for average. That's all cool. However, we're going to be with that person. If you want to be with that person for a long time, you want to get that feeling in the chest, the butterflies in the tummy, like when you first met.
Yep.
Because there's no reason at all that you cannot still have the experience. No matter whether you've been married 5, 10, 15, or in a relationship 15, 20, or 50 years, you can still have that same feeling if you want to. The key thing, which Monica and I both do, and we make people aware of this, it's about taking ownership of your own stuff. So quite often, Monica, my wife, might say something, and I'll have that feeling in my tummy going, oh, I don't feel right. So instead of actually being reactive at her, I'll say, what's that going on within me? what's that triggering within me? What is that? Is that my old stuff kicking in again? The old not good enough, not belonging? What is that? Not being loved? And sure enough, it'll be one of those. It'll kick off within me, and I'll go, ah. So then I'll own it. And I'll say, wow, that was my stuff. I actually had a bit of a moment then. And instead of putting it onto her, and that's generally what happens. It's not owning your own stuff, your own emotions, and going, wow, I just felt annoyed then. And rather than saying you made me feel annoyed or you annoyed me, it's no, that's all my stuff. I'll own that. So it's really about taking ownership and not trying to just palm it off, going external to other people, or your partner, because it just doesn't work.
You talk about feelings and how you know, imparting them, you know, laying the blame, you made me feel, or you did.
Yeah.
I've been a student of Kerwin Ray for many years and attended his seminar, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. And
Agreed.
one of the things that he says is that nobody makes you feel anyway, you chose to label it. So just because somebody said something or did something, they didn't make you feel a particular way. You've accepted that and you've labeled it. And it's but that gets back to have a level of confidence and surety in yourself to just go, okay, well, that's interesting. How did that make me feel? But the sad reality in society today that very few people have, number one, got the awareness to understand these things. They're not, I won't say they're not educated. They haven't had the willingness to want to understand and just accept that this is the way it is. And it's I find it really quite sad. You know,
fully 100%, mate.
Sad.
And it is,
mate. We could talk for hours.
We could.
And I've had an absolute ball. And I thank you so much for being a part of this. I know that the people that will watch this, they will get tremendous value from what you've said. If anybody in viewer land, the ether out there, wants to explore it, and I strongly encourage you to do so. Mark's details will be up on the post. As said, their business is magnificent mindset. If don't accept mediocrity, and we've got to look after. You know, somebody said to me, you know, his partner had said he was selfish because he was looking after himself, and he said, I'm not being selfish, because if I don't look after me, if I'm not right, how can I look after others? And you know, it's the old adage, you know, how can you pour from an empty glass? So we need to fill our cup. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I really appreciate your time. My name's Con. I am the Conversationalist, and until next time, bye for now.